This video is going to be almost identical to the previous video, where we're looking at the decision of whether we should produce wheat or not, and if we do, how much wheat we should produce. The previous example looked at the price of wheat that was $2.70 per bushel. What we're going to do here is look at almost identical example, except the price of wheat is much lower. Now the wheat price is $1 per bushel. We're going to see under this price, should we produce wheat or not? And if we do produce how much? Well, from previous videos you've learned how to take these prices and this production schedule, and from that calculate the profits you would make at different levels of nitrogen use. And so we're just going to go straight to these profits and see what they say. First, if you don't produce any wheat, you're going to lose $50. But if you do decide to produce some wheat, whether you produce a little wheat or a lot of wheat, you're going to lose more than $50. So you can just look at this and say right away, you want to, if you know you're going to lose money, and you do lose money under every action here, produce or not produce, produce a little, produce a lot, you're always going to lose money. So now you're in the mindset where you want to minimize your losses, and you minimize those losses by not producing any wheat, and your losses are $50. Do anything else, produce any wheat, you're going to lose more than that. Another way of seeing this is go back to our rule. Our rule where we say we produce wheat only when the total revenues of producing wheat is greater than the variable cost of producing wheat. And our variable costs are going to be whatever the nitrogen cost is, and that nitrogen cost depends on how much nitrogen we apply, plus the $50. And this $50 is not the fixed cost, it's the other variable cost. And so if we do produce wheat, we know that our variable cost is going to be greater than $50. But look over here in revenues. If you produce wheat, revenues are always less than $50. So you know, anytime you produce wheat here, revenues are going to be less than variable costs, so you should not produce. This is meant to be a greater than sign here. And this would be a situation, like an example would be where your fixed cost is land and your variable cost is fuel for the tractors, seed, fertilizer, pesticides, all the stuff, all the inputs that you absolutely need to be able to produce some wheat. If you want more wheat, you need more inputs. Now, if we produce here, this means that all the money coming in from wheat doesn't even pay for these things like fuel, seed, fertilizer, and pesticides. We spend more on those inputs than we get in revenues. And those losses mount on top of that $50 fixed cost we have for land. Let me show you one other thing that I found useful. Remember, we say that produce if revenues are greater than variable cost. Well, notice we can go in here and divide each side by the amount we produce, say output. Well, revenues divided by output just equals output price, which in this case for the output price was wheat, was just $1. And variable cost, your total variable cost divided by how much you produce, is just your average variable cost. And so you produce, another way of saying all this is that you produce wheat only when the price you get for wheat is greater than your average variable cost. Let me state this in terms that's probably easier to see. So you say we produce wheat only when the price we get for that wheat is greater than average cost of variable inputs. So produce wheat when the price you get for each bushel is greater than your average cost of each bushel, where you're only looking at variable cost, you're not including fixed cost.